Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to run a quick analysis in Excel using the data validation and also the SUMIFS function. But before we dive into the analysis itself, let me show you something real quick about SUMIFS. Alright, because we're going to be using SUMIFS to pull the data that we want from the data set, I need to show you something real quick about SUMIFS or SUMIFS. This is SUMIFS. SUMIFS is different from SUMIFS. Right, for SUMIFS, you have just three arguments, which is the data range, the criteria, and the sum range. The range is where the data you are looking for is situated, and the criteria is the condition that you're setting for the data that you're looking for. And the sum range is where the data you want to sum up is located. Note, this is SUMIFS. And if you see the arrangement, the sum range is the last one. And if we go to SUMIFS right here, you can see it's quite different. The syntax is a little bit different from SUMIFS. The difference is that the SUMIFS has more arguments depending on how much data you're trying to pull. If you look at the syntax, the sum range is at the beginning of the parameters that we're trying to use to pull the data. While in SUMIFS, the sum range is the last thing before the parenthesis closes. Every other thing in the syntax remains the same, except the arrangement of the sum range and the number of criteria or argument in the syntax. Now let's look at a case study. This is Betty. She's a data analyst with a retail tech company. Her manager wants her to analyze the sales data over a period of 3 years and populate the total revenue that each sales manager generated on a yearly basis. So this is the data that we're going to use. You can see the data from date, year, month to the managers, and then the region, product, colors, and then the revenue right here. So we want to be able to sum all the performance by year. We don't need to pull by month. We're just going to use data validation to list the 3 years. Remember in the question, we said 3 years. So we want to see from 2019 to 2021, and then use the same data validation to list the different managers. And then once you click on the managers, you can see their performance. All right. And if we change the year to another year, let's say we pick 2020, we can see the performance of the managers. And what this total revenue is showing is the sum of each of the manager from January to December, and then we have the total for each year pulled together in this column. That's what we're going to do. So we use SUMIFS to populate the total revenue, and we use data validation to list the year, as you can see here, and also list the name of the managers. Let's dive right in. So this is the data that we're going to use. We have the data in date, year, month, managers, region, product, color, units, and revenue. So we will be populating the data here. We know we can do this, if we use the filter right here, we can do this by selecting, the managers that we want. We select it by year. We know it's 2019 to 2021. This is going to take a lot of time. Remember, Betty is supposed to turn this report in 10 minutes. So that's what we're going to do here to make the job really easy and fast. So we're going to use data validation to list the year and then list the managers, and then we use SUMIFS to populate the revenue by manager and by year. So the first thing we're going to do is to populate that and pull out the equal sign. Remember, if you want to use formula or function in Excel, the first thing that you do is to pull out the equal sign, which is what I did. And then you pull out the SUMIFS function. And then remember, we're using SUMIFS, not SUMIF. So pull that, and then the criteria is going to show for you. We have the sum range coming first, and then the other criteria range and criteria will be listed. Okay, so we're going to pull the sum range. The sum range is going to be the revenue, and then Control-Shift down arrow to quickly pick that to save time. And then you put a comma, and we go ahead to pick the first criteria range. which is going to be the year. We go to where the year is right here, and we select from top to bottom, Control Shift down arrow to pick from the beginning of the data to the end of it. And then if you look up here, you're going to see the formula here at the formula bar. You can populate that there or keep working on it in this column. We put a comma and then we pick the criteria, which is this cell M7, and then that's where the year is going to be listed. And then I put a comma, and then we go ahead to pick the second criteria, which is the managers. I go to where the managers are in the data, and I click Control Shift down arrow, and I go to where we are populating the data again, up right here, and I put a comma, and then I select the cell that I want to put the data, which is the criteria, and that's the manager. And then I click on that, and then I close the parentheses. So if you look at the syntax, we have the sum range is the first one, the revenue. We have the second one, which is actually the first criteria range, which is the year. And then we have the criteria itself, which is the year. The criteria range is where you're picking the data from, and the criteria is what you're trying to look up. Okay, and then we have the second one, which is the manager range. We go to the table to find where we see the manager, which is here from cell E3 all the way to cell E102. And then the last thing is to pick the criteria, which is the manager. You can actually type those things in, but because we're going to be changing the parameters using list under data validation, that's why we have to select the cell. And then we hit enter. So the moment we begin to populate the data, things will change right here. So let's go ahead and impute the data validation. So to start with that, let your cursor be in the cell that you want to put the value. Then you go to data up here, right here, click on data. You go to data tools right here, and then click the down arrow. You see 3 options popping up, and then you select the data validation. Once you click on that, a box is going to pop up. When it pops up, you go to allow and go to any value, click the down arrow. We are going to put list. You can actually use any of these, but we want to use list because we want to list the options that we are going to be toggling on. And then you can use this to insert the data that you want from the cell or from the list or from the data set. But we don't want to do that because we have multiple data points in that column. So we're going to write out what we want to put in there. Remember I said 2019, 2020 and 2021. So we're going to write 2019 and you separate with a comma. You write 2020, you separate with a comma and you write 2021. And then those are the 3 options that we want to see in the drop down list. And then we click OK. Once we do that, we come to the cell and you see a down arrow beside that cell. When you click on that, you're going to see the list of the years that you want to play with. So we go ahead and do the same for manager. Let your cursor be in the cell that you want to put the value. We go to data, just the same method. You go to data tools, click on that, select data validation, and this box is going to pop up. And we already know what we need to do. We want to list the managers. So we click on list and then we start putting in the managers. We put Brittany, we put John, we put Mike. These are the names of the managers. We separate with comma. Remember to separate with comma. We put Nicole, we put Tara, and we put Tony. Remember to separate with a comma. Okay, and then we click OK. So if you click the down arrow beside the manager, you're going to see the list of all the managers, like so. And if you come to the year, click on that cell. You're going to see the down arrow. Let's say we want to see the performance in 2020 and we want to select a manager. Let's select John. We can see the performance of John. Let me make it bolder. Okay, so we can see the performance of John. If we change the manager, try to look at Mike, we can see the performance, the total performance of Mike in 2020. If we change that to 2021, you see that the value changed. And if we look at managers, click the down arrow, select Nicole, you can see what Nicole sold in 2021. If we change it to 2020, right here, you can see that the number changed. And if we change the manager for 2020 also, we can see Tara did not sell anything in 2020. Mike sold something in 2020. John sold in 2020. And let's see, Brittany did not sell anything. But what if we change the year to see if Brittany sold anything in 2019? She did not sell anything. And in 2021, she still did not sell anything. So let's look at another person. Let's look at John and try to change the years. Let's look at 2019. Mike did not sell anything in 2019. And if we change the year, let's change it 2021, and we can see, okay, so this is exactly what I want to show you, how to work smart. And Betty can turn in our report within a very short time, and the manager can actually see what the sales managers did within the period of evaluation or review. Okay, so that's how to use data validation and SUMIFS together. There's a lot of ways to play around your data to show that you have expertise in this field. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.